Viewer warning, you're about to hear some foul language.
Let's start tonight's show with the big news out of Washington on the shutdown. By the way, tonight's show will be brought to you by I can't believe it. I can't believe it. They caved on the shutdown.
8 Senate Democrats voted with Republicans to reopen the government, and the base is out for blood. Liberals are driving across state lines, hunting down the traitors.
My way into games. Hi. I spent about a couple hours trying to call this morning, and y'all didn't pick up, so then I drove an hour and a half to be here. Just put us through 5 weeks of suffering to just say, okay, that's fine. It was the most cowardly and weak move ever. Okay. He's a traitor, and people will die because of him.
Hakeem's trying to calm everybody down, but even CNN is putting him in a sombrero.
Was it the shutdown worth it?
We have waged a battle on behalf of the American people.
But at the end of the day, you didn't get what you want, so was it worth waging this fight?
At the end of the day, the fight lives on.
He shut down the government, and all he had to show for it was a stupid sombrero. Not for old Chucky Boy, though. They're throwing him in a wheelchair and rolling him right out the door.
Democrats drew a line in the sand. They said, we are not going over this. And today, after 41 days, they pulled out a shovel and a bucket, and they ate all that sand and got nothing for it. Isn't that great? I mean, it is incredible at his age that Chuck Schumer is still able to bend over so far.
The Messiah's disciples have descended down from heaven with a message. Chuck's not getting Me Too'd, but his time's up.
I think he's been in trouble. I think he is in bigger trouble now. I think Senator Schumer's been there since 1982. My guess is that he won't be leader of the party in 2027 after this election, unless something really surprising happens.
The Schumer shutdown's over, and so's Schumer. The coup is in motion. In 24 hours, the squad, Rashida Tlaib, who didn't say anything about the Mideast peace deal, said this: Schumer should step down. Our friend Shree also wants Schumer's scalp. It's time for us to have somebody with guts. Ouch. Hakeem says, no way, Jose.
Do you think Schumer should be replaced?
Leader Schumer did not bless this agreement. He voted against it. And of course, Senate Democrats who voted no have made that clear.
Schumer either blessed the agreement under the table or isn't strong enough to control his caucus. Either way, they say Schumer's weak. 80% of Move On members say Chuck should pack his bags and go back to Brooklyn. They say he's surrendered. Chuck shut down the government so the base would think he's tough. How'd that work? Now they're just calling him a coward. Trump says he never should have transitioned.
I feel badly because I've known Chuck Schumer. I knew him when he was a person who loved Israel, and now he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian, and it's amazing. I've never seen a politician change so much. Also, he doesn't have, he was a pretty talented guy. He's lost his talent.
The last time Democrats staged a coup, they didn't have a backup plan. Remember? That's how they got Kamala. MSNBC's like, can we please have a backup plan this time?
The people who are saying, oh, let's get rid of Chuck Schumer, I'm waiting for the name. They have yet to say, well, who's going to do it? Who do you have?
Yeah.
Who have you convinced? And who's going to do it better than Chuck Schumer?
Democrats are like, you want the name? Here's a whole list.
I like Chris Van Hollen. I like Chris Murphy. I like Elizabeth Warren. I mean, there are others, but I think someone who has shown moral clarity, someone who gets this moment.
They're going to replace Schumer with a fake Indian? Or the guy who had Margs with the Maryland dad? That's a much worse backup plan than Kamala. CNN says maybe something spicier. Bernie Sanders in a pantsuit.
Look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez running way ahead. If she decides to challenge Chuck Schumer and come 2028, she's got a real leg up on the competition. I dare say at this point she would be the favorite to beat him, which would be something that would just blow my mind, even just a few years ago, given that Chuck Schumer, of course, is a New York born and bred type of guy.
Yeah, those are incredible.
Look at that, 30
there.
points ahead. My goodness gracious.
Wow. Well, if the party looks different, it's because it is. Ever since Nancy busted her hip, the auto pen retired, and Barack stopped walking on water, the Democrat Party turned into a free-for-all.
Who is running the show now in the Democratic Party, in the Senate, in the House?
No one really knows.
Well, if you ask the lefties, they know. It's the Commie Party.
The capitulation of a few Senate Democrats is as backstabbing a betrayal as we will ever need to unite as a true Democratic Party and dismantle the leadership that put us in this position. Mom Donnie has shown us the way. It is time to end the era of the feckless Democrat.
Mondani has shown us the way? They learned the wrong lesson from last Tuesday's election. The Bolsheviks didn't come to power just by slicing the head off the snake. They split the party in half and filled the ranks with communists. Bernie the Bolshevik wants a red revolution up and down the whole ballot.
Chuck Schumer is part of the establishment. And I'm sorry to say that many people in the Democratic caucus are part of it. I would say we have 8 or 9 out of 47 people who I would consider to be progressives. The issue right now is doing primaries, getting people involved in the political process. So I think we need to take on the Democratic establishment all over this country.
So according to my math, which isn't great, Bernie just said around 40 Democrats in the Senate, pretty much everyone in the Senate, has got to go. They aren't woke enough, and they have to be primary. And in the House, hips could be on the chopping block. Kami Mondami's buddy, a New York City councilman who even the New York Times calls far left, is gearing up to primary Hakeem. But Fetterman, head of the normie wing, says, over my dead body.
I don't need a lecture from whether it's Bernie or the governor in California, because they are representing very deep blue kinds of populations. And a lot of those things were part of the extreme. I promise you, this isn't a political game.
The Brooklyn Bolshevik is going to fight dirty. Anyone standing up against communism is a big, fat, corrupt money puppet.
The division that we're seeing in the Democratic Party right now are those who get a whole lot of money from wealthy campaign contributors. They hire consultants. And I got to tell you, that consultant class is so far removed from reality. It is really quite pathetic. That's one wing of the Democratic Party. And there's the other wing. And that is what Mamdani did in New York.
So while the commies are walking the old-timers off the plank, there's a political cobra charming his way through the party.
This is Congressman Srikanagar in Washington, D.C. I'm fighting for affordability, fighting for health care. You know, we're the richest nation in the world, but we don't have our people covered with health care.
The Democrats are in shambles. Nancy's retiring, Schumer's on his last legs, and young communists are ascendant. A civil war is going to force Democrats to spend a fortune. Not only will they have to beat Republicans, they're going to have to beat far lefties in the primary. And these primaries are going to drag these normal Democrats hard left. Now, when Republicans fought their civil war, MAGA won, and the party grew. The Democrat Party is facing the same type of plight. You either die or you survive.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.